Welcome to Novel Navigator, where every story is an adventure waiting to unfold. If you're a fan of powerful plots, unforgettable characters, and immersive narration, you've just found your new favorite destination. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe, and share the channel with your friends and family. Your support helps keep these stories alive and growing. This is Novel Navigator, guiding you through worlds of imagination, one chapter at a time. Reincarnation of the Strongest Healer Chapter 11. Harsh debuff after being thrown around like a rag doll. Su Feng's vision finally gained clarity as he seemed to have arrived at a town. There is a teleporter in front of him, meaning that he should have been teleported from the holy sanctuary to this town. At the same time, he heard chattering from the sides with players interacting with one another. These players didn't have much equipment on them either and seemed to have just started the game. Phew, at least I didn't spend too much time in the holy sanctuary and cause me to be behind others. Su Feng was quite relieved to realize this point with a mere glance. Just as Su Feng was feeling quite relieved, he heard an angry shout from behind. "Hey, move aside already. Don't you know the traffic here is high?" Su Feng didn't get agitated by the angry shout as he turned around to the person shouting angrily. It was a muscular man with a wooden shield on his left hand and a steel lance on his right hand. So, it's a Knight Lancer class player. He thought to himself, inspecting the gears of the person. "Sorry, they'll move away now." He smiled with a somewhat apologetic look and said softly, exiting the teleporter platform. A teleporter platform served as a function of transportation for players between locations. Depending on the distance, the cost and usage of the teleportation could vary in price. And being a town, one that is a starter town location for players finishing their character creation, the teleporter platform was usually free of charge and players would be able to return to the town without needing a teleport scroll or return scroll. Thus, blocking others in this crowded space naturally led to frustration from fellow players. So Su Feng didn't take offense to the harsh tone directed at him. After moving away from the teleporter, Su Feng began to ponder the potential punishment imposed by the system. The first thing he checked was his inventory, and only when he saw the herbs were there did he sigh in relief. Phew, at least the system wasn't so cruel as to take back the herbs I painstakingly obtained, Su Feng thought, patting his chest. With his main concern resolved, he now wondered what other punishment the system might have in store for him. The fact that he wasn't imprisoned or had his herbs confiscated made him thoroughly confused. After all, the system did state punishment would be imposed, and there was no way the system would lie to him. It wouldn't and couldn't do so either. There is a saying for those who play Divine World. Believe in the system more than you believe in your parents, lovers, and friends. Parents, lovers, and friends could lie to you, but the system won't. Sigh, whatever, let me check my status screen first. Fixing the glasses position, Su Feng decided to open his status screen for the first time since arriving in the Divine World. Player name, Lin Feng class, cleric level, 1 experience points, 0/100 attributes, strength 8, agility 7, endurance 9, intelligence 12, vitality 10. At first, Su Feng merely browsed through his status screen without much thought until he noticed the experience points were highlighted in a darkish red color. "Huh, what's the meaning of this?" he mumbled, clicking on the experience points. As soon as he clicked on it, Su Feng realized the so-called punishment that was imposed upon him after reading the system message prompt. System: due to adventurer Lin Feng's ethics, the experience points gained from killing normal monsters are reduced by 99% for the duration of 3 days. Although 3 days didn't seem to be a long time, one must understand that the game had just been released. To have your experience points drastically reduced by 99% at the start of the game was equivalent to being behind by the rest for a month. After all, a fresh start of a game is the most important time for a player and those who are pros or those who play games for a living. Normally, anyone receiving such a harsh debuff would be disheartened and might even lose their will. Su Feng's body was trembling, and from an outsider's perspective, he was someone going crazy, causing others to give him a side glance and avoid him like a plague. Of course, Su Feng realized the surroundings, but he couldn't be bothered. He was simply too speechless at the moment. Ah, system, How could you believe this kind of debuff would set me back? Su Feng laughed inwardly. The debuff was targeted at normal monsters, meaning the system thought he would be like other average players, trying to gain experience by killing the tutorial monsters. Tutorial monsters, as in those low-level and easy-to-kill mobs that could increase a player's level as soon as possible. But most importantly, were classified as normal monsters in the divine world are those found in the wild, as if he would spend the time hunting for them when he got a bunch of rare herbs. Let's open the map and check where in the heck did I get sent to, he thought to himself, opening the map interface. Riverwood Town, that was the name of the town that Su Feng was thrown into, and he couldn't help but silently curse at the system's despicable move. Damn, to think he'll be thrown at Riverwood Town under the jurisdiction of the Etheria Empire. Aren't you trying to force me to be sandwiched to death by those wealthy heirs? He was definitely annoyed by the circumstance, but there was nothing else he could do. To attempt to transport himself to other regions would cost him quite a fortune, not to mention the loss of valuable time. To be unlucky enough to be thrown into an empire region meant the competition was going to be fierce. However, that doesn't mean it was all bad, because if he could maneuver his scheme properly, then this supposed bad fortune could turn into a gold mine. The system thinks it screwed me over, but I, Su Feng, am not afraid of challenge. He clenched his fist tightly, and a glint of determination flashed behind his glasses. Chapter 12. Riverwood Town was a bustling hub for newly minted adventurers. Excitement permeated the air like a palpable energy. The town bustled with eager players walking through the cobblestone streets and lively marketplaces. Within the marketplaces, it was a common sight to see wooden signs adorned with intricate carvings that marked the entrances to shops and guild halls, inviting exploration and discovery. To add to the lively atmosphere, NPCs, indistinguishable from their human counterparts, roamed the streets, offering quests and guidance to the fledgling adventurers. Most of the players clad in basic armor and wielding simple weapons would have their eyes wide with wonder as they took in the sights and sounds of this virtual world. Meanwhile, deep in the center of Riverwood Town was the town square, where groups of players gathered, forming impromptu parties and exchanging tips and strategies for their next quests. Looking for a party of 5 to kill some hobgoblins. Must be at least level 2. Our newly formed adventure team, Killing Gods, is looking for people to join. No level requirement. Recruiting level 3 and above players for the Blazing Depth Dungeon. Different types of players shouting for recruitment or looking to be recruited could be heard from all angles. And Su Feng was not an exception to this, as he was forced to listen to their shoutings. These players really got a lot of time in their hands. Recruiting in public is just a waste of time, and only a few would be lucky enough to recruit actual good players. Su Feng thought, finding these players in the town square ridiculous. If there were indeed pros or skilled players, then they wouldn't be frantically looking for a party or an adventure team here. Instead, they would improve their image and hope the famous guilds would take notice of them. Although the game had just started, the starter town offered many features. From the blacksmith forging weapons to the innkeeper serving hearty meals, players could also go to the town hall to establish their own guild. After all, surrounding the town were dense forests filled with monsters and hidden treasures, beckoning players to venture forth and test their mettle against the dangers that lurked within. To encourage players actively, letting them believe they have the freedom to do whatever they want was the main point of a starter town. Additionally, there are many tips and guides available through the channel of NPCs to assist clueless players. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 NPCs walking towards Su Feng directly and requesting him to do some quests. In response, Su Feng would put on his usual gentle smile and politely reject them, stating that he was working on a quest already. Of course, that was a big fat lie, and he had not accepted a quest at all. I'm already being inflicted with a huge debuff. So what's the point of doing your quest when you won't give me experience points in return? Su Feng wanted to roll his eyes when these types of NPCs approached him. Unlike most games that have experience points granted to players upon completion of a quest, there are quests in the divine world that don't reward them. And most of the quests in the starter town wouldn't reward experience points to maintain balance and prevent others from hoarding the quests. Thus, Su Feng had zero interest in doing the quest, even if their request was to kill a few mobs. After all, besides him, other players didn't have a negative 99% experience gained and would do those quests. Taking a deep breath and ignoring the crowds, Su Feng slowly made his way toward the town hall. As Su Feng arrived and stepped inside the town hall, he was greeted by sturdy oak walls adorned with simple yet elegant tapestries depicting scenes of local history and lore. The interior of the town hall could be said to exude a sense of modest grandeur. The floors were made of polished stone, worn smooth by the countless footsteps of visitors and officials alike. Large windows allowed ample natural light to filter into the space, casting a warm glow over the room. A simple chandelier hung from the ceiling, providing additional illumination when needed. A few potted plants added a touch of greenery to the room, while maps and charts displayed on the walls offered information about the town's layout and surrounding areas. And near the entrance, a receptionist sat behind a small wooden desk, her demeanor professional yet friendly as she greeted visitors and directed them to the appropriate areas of the town hall. With a warm smile, she welcomed players to the town and offered assistance with any inquiries they might have. "Hello, what can I help you with today, adventurer?" Upon noticing Su Feng walking toward her, the receptionist smiled and asked gently. Not beating around the bushes, Su Feng directly responded, "Hi, I want to exchange a few rare herbs for money, and I wish to conduct the trade in a private room." The receptionist, initially stunned by his request, quickly regained her composure. "Adventurer, are you sure you want a private room to conduct the trade?" she asked, somewhat in a daze. "If the herbs that you mentioned are indeed rare, then there would be no problem. But if it isn't, then there's a fee you must pay for such mobilization." To summarize, the receptionist was trying to kindly warn Su Feng of the consequences and to reconsider his decision. After all, the current stream of players could barely get an upgrade in their gears, much less have rare herbs that the town might find valuable. Hence, it wasn't the receptionist trying to look down on Su Feng, but it was the reality of the situation. "You may rest assured, receptionist." Su Feng smiled and proceeded to retrieve one of the herbs that he had ransacked in the miracle herb garden. He discreetly showed it to her, making sure no one else besides her would see it. Thud! The receptionist's palm slammed on the wooden desk, and her eyes widened in shock. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva nervously and said, "Wait here for a while, adventurer. I will get someone specialized in herbs." Chapter 13. Herbalist Elias. Once the receptionist finished telling Su Feng to wait, she simply dashed out from the main lobby of the town hall and ran upstairs. The ordeal created some scenes, with players turning their attention to Su Feng. What's the deal with that player? What made the receptionist so anxious? The receptionist is an NPC and they don't usually have much emotion. Yet that player caused her to run upstairs. The player has the novice robe and novice staff, so presumably it's either a sorcerer, summoner, arcane mage, or a cleric. The players were quick to discuss among themselves as they began guessing Su Feng's class and wondering what he did. Meanwhile, Su Feng pretended to be deaf and blind, ignoring these gossiping players. Though inwardly, he was flabbergasted at the reaction of the receptionist. Why did she have to create such a big reaction? Usually, the NPCs at this stage of the game won't have much emotion, which was why he dared to reveal his rare herb here. Yet he seemed to have miscalculated once again. Could this be the butterfly effect? Since the herbs I have shouldn't be available at this moment, it causes the abnormal behavior of the NPCs. Su Feng wondered silently. Knitting his brows, Su Feng realized that he needed to pay close attention to his future actions. The advantage of knowing future events was great and could allow him to capitalize on it, but it needed to be done with caution. He won't be blinded by momentary greed that would cause him to lose even greater profit. One must be farsighted and plan further ahead to stay on top. Good thing I realized this early on, otherwise things will be bad. He thought to himself and began to reconsider the upcoming trade. Before this, he wanted to reap a large profit, but that would have to be postponed now. He can't afford a possible mishap and crash the market early on. That wouldn't be the mindset of a profiteer. And neither would he wish for that kind of outcome when he wanted these filthy rich heirs or players to donate him generously. How could he possibly not drain them dry of their wealth? In fact, it would be a crime to give them an easy life. As Su Feng was thinking evilly, his outer appearance might not change, but the natural aura and pressure he exuded caused some players to become wary of him. They became somewhat terrified of him and wondered what kind of scheme he was cooking. Within a few minutes, most players who had finished their business in the town hall left hastily, unwilling to be around Su Feng, who appeared mysterious. Their actions, however, didn't affect Su Feng one bit. He was nonchalant and patiently waiting for the receptionist to return. Time slowly passed by, and soon the receptionist came downstairs with an elderly man. The elderly man had silver hair and a white goatee on his chin. Despite the appearance of an elderly, his physical build resembled more of a youthful male. Apologies for the delay, but are you the adventurer with those rare herbs? Not even waiting for the receptionist to introduce, the elderly man took it upon himself to ask Su Feng. Su Feng nodded his head, glancing at his surroundings in the meantime. The NPCs might not act too human-like at the early stage of the game, but that doesn't mean they are completely dense and incapable of interacting with players. Thus, the elderly man was rather keen with his indication of wanting to speak privately in the room first. Ah, how impolite of me. Please head upstairs with me. The elderly man smiled amicably and proceeded to walk where he came from. After the elderly man began to head upstairs, the receptionist kindly guided Su Feng. As for the remaining players in the town hall, they were all shocked senseless, their eyes glued on Su Feng, who followed them upstairs without any hindrance. How did that player manage to get upstairs? This is unbelievable. You need to complete a certain amount of quests and gain the required reputation to head upstairs. Yet that player had already completed the prerequisites. I need to inform my guild leader about this news. The players were frantic as they scurried around the town hall. Some are busy contacting their friends, while some are busy contacting their respective team leader or guild leader about the incident. Heh, these players are really doing me a free advertisement. They'll have to thank them in return by milking their wealth dry. Su Feng snickered inwardly when he heard the commotion in the lobby. Sometime later, Su Feng arrived at a room labeled Herbalist Elias. His footsteps paused, his eyes locked onto the name Elias. This elderly man is Herbalist Elias? Su Feng was astonished, clearly not expecting to meet such a character this early on. Is there something wrong, adventurer? The receptionist asked in concern when she realized Su Feng stopped right before the doorstep. Snapping out of his daze, Su Feng flashed a gentle smile and shook his head. Nothing, I was just thinking something earlier. He said, not divulging much information. Not finding it suspicious, the receptionist nodded her head and guided Su Feng to sit on a comfortable couch opposite the elderly man. Once Su Feng took his seat and the receptionist closed the door, the elderly man began introducing himself. It's nice to meet you, adventurer. I'm Elias, and a person specializing in herbs. I'm also quite interested in rare herbs that are hard to find in this region. Elias said softly in a seemingly calm tone. Alas, his eyes and body language betrayed him. Su Feng's keen perspection had detected that the elderly man in front of him was filled with anticipation and excitement. Normally, based on his usual antics, Su Feng was going to reel him in slowly to prioritize maximum profit. However, knowing this person would soon become a legendary and crucial figure in the divine world, he decided to take some losses this time. Take it as an early investment for a greater yield in the future. Su Feng thought to himself. Chapter 14. Trade's good to meet you too, Herbalist Elias. Su Feng smiled amicably, ensuring none of his shrewd thoughts were exposed. I'm Lin Feng, and I came here specifically to conduct a trade with a person of value. He introduced himself in return, his tone filled with politeness. A person of value? Elias raised an eyebrow, seemingly confused by the use of words. Apologies for my blunt remark, Herbalist L.A. I've been traveling in the wilderness for a while, but none have been able to detect the true values of the herbs in my possession. and today I've finally found someone who understands the herb's value and its importance. Su Feng explained, casually lying with a straight face. His expression and body language were completely natural, almost as if he was speaking the truth. Of course, to lie with a straight face takes experience and confidence. Otherwise, the lie would be easily exposed. This was also why he was able to deceive the guards from the miracle herb garden despite having zero proof of identity. His demeanor and gestures alone were able to convince them. Meanwhile, Elias' expression brightened up the moment Su Feng finished his explanation. Although it was a simple compliment, Elias was delighted to hear someone complimenting his recognition of great herbs. Haha, you sure know how to sweet-talk someone, adventurer. Elias laughed heartily. So I heard from receptionist Sandy that you wanted to conduct the trade of herbs in a private room. May I know what kind of price you wish for? He subsequently asked, getting down to the business. It appeared that he could no longer wait to get his hands on the herbs under Su Feng's possession. The conversation continued to drag on for a while, only because Su Feng wanted to manipulate Elias' emotions. If Elias could get the herbs easily without much difficulty, then he would only take it for granted and not appreciate it much. Those who take things for granted will never be grateful. Su Feng sneered inwardly, having learned this lesson quite painfully. He would never commit the same mistake twice. Sometime later, Elias was no longer able to compose himself further. Adventurer Lin Feng, just speak your mind freely and tell me how much you want in exchange for the herbs, he said, his body trembling slightly from excitement and anxiousness. I believe herbalist Elias would give me a great offering. Su Feng smiled amicably, proceeding to retrieve half of the rare herbs onto the table. Half of these herbs are things that Su Feng won't be able to capitalize upon for profits. These were merely herbs that were rare and had a valuable price value on them, similar to gems like diamonds. Elias' eyes sparkled in glitter when he saw all of the rare herbs glistening on the table. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and was barely able to control his actions of snatching all of the herbs into his pocket. You are free to inspect them, herbalist Elias. Su Feng chuckled softly. Originally, I planned to sell at a higher price, but seeing your enthusiasm and admiration of the herbs, I decided not to. Instead, I hope that we could discuss and share our views of the herbs, such as recipes. He added, painting himself in an honorable light. Receptionist Sandy, who was standing by the background, seemed to find Su Feng's words confusing and misleading. Yet she couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong in his speech. As for Elias, he was exhilarated after being placed in anticipation and nervousness all this time to notice the hidden intention of Su Feng's speech. Haha. Of course, adventurer Lin Feng. It's always been my pleasure to share some of my views of herbs with a fellow enthusiast. Elias laughed heartily, his hands already picking up the herbs. The moment his hand came into contact with the herbs, it was as if Elias had become possessed. His eyes sparkled brightly, and his facial expression changed drastically. Going from an elderly man, the current Elias displayed a behavior no different than a 5-year-old kid. Is it really true that NPCs are still somewhat robotic in the early stages? How come this old man can display such emotion? Su Feng was dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. He couldn't comprehend the emotion and actions displayed by Elias. According to his knowledge, the NPCs would only begin to show such in-depth human-like behavior during the game's 3rd update. Seems like my actions are really affecting the world, he thought to himself, feeling more certain about how his actions and influence had impacted the divine world. Alas, there was no turning back now that he had come this far, and neither would he suddenly get cold feet and attempt to reverse the situation. At best, the game would simply proceed forward at a faster rate than in the past. This kind of development would merely affect the players who had zero knowledge of the game and are still trying to explore this vast new world. Why should he shackle himself to allow others to catch up? Time slowly passed by, and herbalist Elias had long submerged into his own world, occasionally mumbling a herb name from time to time. Su Feng also didn't wish to interrupt his moment for now, lest he might get a bad impression instead. Thankfully, Su Feng's waiting time was saved by the receptionist. Herbalist Elias, I'm sorry to disturb you, but time is running out, and I remember you telling me to remind you of the matter." Receptionist Sandy stepped forward and reported. A few seconds later, Elias regained his composure upon the mention of the matter. "Ah, how embarrassing of me." Elias scratched his head, seemingly ashamed of his earlier demeanor. "Adventurer Lin Feng, I apologize for wasting your precious time. To compensate for that, here is an old book of mine that I kept regarding my research of herbs and recipes. System, congratulations to Adventurer Lin Feng for opening the rapport relationship with herbalist Elias." Chapter 15. Rapport in Divine World. The rapport relationship was a notable feature, enabling players to establish various levels of rapport with NPCs. NPC relationships typically began at neutral, progressing through stages such as amicable, friendly, trusted, and affectionate as players interacted more positively. Conversely, there were also negative rapport stages, including tensed, strained, hostile, and enemy, reflecting deteriorating relationships. However, one must keep in mind that only certain NPCs in the Divine World would have a rapport relationship. After all, these certain NPCs have a high impact on the Divine World. And it was precisely because of this fact that Su Feng was taking his time carefully in interacting with herbalist Elias, an NPC who would have a large impact in the latter stages of the game. Glancing at the rapport feature being activated, Su Feng inspected the status listed with herbalist Elias calmly. Rapport status with NPC. Herbalist Elias current rapport level. Amicable recent interactions. Completed a generous trade with herbalist Elias. Engaged in a friendly conversation about herbalism and potion making. Notes: herbalist Elias seems to appreciate your assistance and values your knowledge of herbalism. Continued positive interactions may lead to further improvement in rapport level. As expected, trading rare herbs like this at the start has directly increased the rapport level from neutral to amicable. Su Feng was pleased with the result. Increasing a rapport level was not an easy feat to achieve, as it could take at least a month or more to gain the NPC's trust. Although it's quite unfortunate that our discussion would have to come short, I hope Adventurer Lin Feng can accept this money. Otherwise, he'll feel guilty of taking so many of these rare herbs," Elias said, putting a pouch that seemed to be filled with money on the table. At the same time, his hands were extremely swift, directly snatching all the herbs that were on the table. The herbs were all stored within the ring that was on Elias' hand. Such action would normally cause confusion to those who had never witnessed this scene before, but Su Feng already knew what kind of ring Elias was wearing. In simple terms, it was a magic ring that had a large dimension space to store a large quantity of items. It could be said to be a similar concept to a player having their inventory and storage capacity. And given that NPCs don't have a personal inventory of their own, most would love to own a magic ring for themselves. Unfortunately, a magic ring cost too much to make, and the technique for creating one seemed to have been lost already. Hence, the scarcity of a magic ring and the reason why there are still jobs available for people to deliver goods from far away. It seems like Adventurer Lin Feng is indeed extraordinary, Elias complimented, having noticed there were little to zero reactions from him when he stored the herbs in his ring. "You flatter me too much, herbalist Elias." Su Feng shook his head and politely refused the compliment. Only a person of your stature could use such a magic ring. Nodding his head, Elias subsequently bid him farewell. "I have some business to do. You're free to use this room as you please. Receptionist Sandy would assist you if you need help with something." As soon as Elias exited the room, Su Feng took the pouch that was on the table and glanced at the money he was given. 300 silver coins. Elias sure is a generous man. Su Feng was satisfied, having felt like he had earned a lottery. By explicitly not mentioning a price, he was letting Elias decide on the value of the herb. From his calculation, he would be pleased to earn somewhere between 100 to 150 silver coins. After all, the herbs weren't that valuable once players increased their levels, given that the region where these herbs are grown could be explored sooner or later. Thus, earning between 100 to 150 silver coins was a blessing already in Su Feng's mind. At the current stage of the game, players were only given 10 copper coins to start with. Copper coins are the lowest value of the currency, followed by silver coins, and then gold coins. 100 copper coins are worth 1 silver coin, and 100 silver coins are worth 1 gold coin. To summarize, this trade alone had earned Su Feng a grand total of 3 gold coins, but that wasn't even the most valuable one. Instead, it was the old book that Elias had generously gifted him. Flipping through the pages of the book, Su Feng's expression remained unchanged, but his mind seemed to be practically dancing in joy. I merely wanted one recipe to synthesize a greater potion, but Elias gave me so many recipes in one go. He exclaimed inwardly. Normally, a recipe would cost around 1 silver coin or more, depending on the rarity and quality of the potion. In other words, some of the recipes could cost a whopping 100 gold coins for players. What was worse was that these players would have no choice but to accept their fate of being extorted. Without the recipes, even if you have valuable herbs, you are not able to synthesize any potions. To put the cherry on the topping, recipes are untradeable, essentially meaning only one player could learn the recipe since it could not be shared among others. Putting the coins in his inventory, Su Feng instantly became the wealthiest player currently in Divine World. Who else but him could possibly possess 3 gold coins at the moment? As Su Feng was starting to get lost in his own world, receptionist Sandy became concerned and asked from the side, Are you okay, Adventurer Lin Feng? Ah, yes, what's the matter? He snapped out of his daze and turned to her, raising his brows. I'm just wondering if you're still going to use this room, Sandy said with a somewhat awkward tone, her eyes glancing at the clock. Right? You still have to work in the lobby. Su Feng was able to understand her predicament. You could just leave me be and take this as thanks for your assistance. He added, giving her 5 copper coins. Chapter 16:16. Game Forum Sandy was initially stunned by the generosity of Su Feng and wanted to decline his money, but Su Feng insisted on her taking it. You helped me tremendously by connecting me with someone like herbalist Elias. Hence, this money is well-deserved, and you shouldn't feel any guilt in accepting it, he said, practically shoving the money to her face. Without a choice, Sandy could only reluctantly accept the money, though her acting needed some improvement since Su Feng could tell she was excited. After repeatedly thanking him, Sandy promptly exited the room, leaving him alone. As the door closed, Su Feng breathed out a sigh of relief. Sandy might not have been a candidate for the rapport status, but she was still a receptionist nevertheless in the town hall. Having an amicable relationship with her would only prove useful in the future. After all, just because an NPC doesn't have a rapport status doesn't mean they won't have an impression toward a player. In fact, these NPCs are usually difficult to deal with because players have no information about them, meaning they could only try their best to increase the invisible rapport with them. Thus, by generously tipping Sandy with 5 copper coins, Su Feng was investing in her and wasn't actually being a philanthropist. This unexpected haul is really a good feeling, he muttered, having completed at least 60% of his current goal, albeit with some alterations due to some mishaps. Despite the mishaps, Su Feng was rather glad of this development. The gain from this unexpected development was definitely superior to his original goal. A wealth of 3 gold coins and 5 copper coins, along with numerous recipes which he had already learned, things were going great. Anyway, time to check on the forum and see if anyone's been talking about me. Su Feng clasped his hands and opened the game forum. The game forum was a lovely feature provided for players to interact with others who were in the same or different regions. It was a great information sharing platform for players, but it was mainly a large gossip group, to be blunt. Players who wanted to spread rumors or witness something special and wanted to share them would come to the game forum to talk about it. Glancing at the game forum, which was filled with all kinds of topics, Su Feng decided to filter them to a specific region. Etheria Empire, Riverwood Town. Breaking news. A mysterious player was able to head upstairs to the town hall. Attached, screenshot evidence of the mysterious player walking upstairs. Shocking. A player can head upstairs to the town hall? A hidden quest, maybe? Player capable of entering the 2nd floor in the town hall. Among all of the posts, there was one that garnered the most attention and had the most activities, with countless players discussing it. After all, The poster was a player named One Man Media, and to prove his credentials, the player even added a screenshot image of his back in the attachment. Since screenshots or videos taken from the divine world could not be altered, it was the greatest concrete evidence. The downside of this function was screenshots and videos actually required in-game currency to use. Thus, the player who had used the trick that Su Feng had now stolen could not produce sufficient evidence. He had just started, so he did not have enough money to take any screenshots or videos. Instead, he had to rely on talking and letting people verify him personally to prove his claims. A screenshot cost 20 copper coins, but this player was able to afford it this early on. Am I supposed to be impressed or disappointed? On one hand, Su Feng was thankful that One Man Media had helped advertise him, but on the other hand, he found him to be a spendthrift. At the current stage, players would rather spend their money wisely on gears or other useful things. Yet this player was willing to waste 20 copper coins to take a screenshot. Either this player was very bold or they were very dumb. Su Feng hoped it was the former, since it meant that this one-man media had the potential to be useful. It was just a shame that Su Feng couldn't recall such a player, which meant that he didn't become an influential person. He had memorized most of the famous or influential players back then to study and analyze them to prepare himself. Thus, he was positive that a player going by the user One Man Media had never entered his list of targets. Seeing how One Man Media was willing to waste 20 copper coins for this screenshot, I suppose he's an ambitious person. For an ambitious person to not make a name for themselves usually involves two reasons. One, he was unsuccessful and failed miserably, or two, he succeeded but eventually got buried by the top and forgotten. Tapping his fingers silently on the table, Su Feng decided to put this player's name in his mind. Whether the player was a clever person or just a reckless fool, Su Feng could determine after some tests. Clicking on the forum, Su Feng proceeded to read the comments left by other players in the region. Harold Fist, where is that player currently? I wish to meet with them for a possible collaboration. Gentle Wind, I have sent a private message to you, One Man Media. Crimson Rose, are you positive it's a player and not just an NPC dressed like a player? It's quite difficult to tell from the angle of the screenshot. Lotus Lime, why are you all commenting here? The poster literally said it was in the town hall. Just move your fat body there and wait in the lobby. Harold Fist, do you think I don't want to wait in the lobby? I'm a busy person and have to do quests to level up for the first clear achievement in the dungeon. Lotus Lime, yet you have the time to be in the game forum. Sheesh, I didn't know you were a ninja that could clone yourself. Forgive me, Ninja Fist. Reading the comment from Lotus Lime, Su Feng nearly laughed a bit. At least there was one sensible person who could actually read and connect the clues, as well as crack hilarious jokes. Harold Fist, Gentle Wind, and Crimson Rose, you three are definitely some pretentious folks. He gave his verdict and fixed his glasses. A somewhat sinister grin appeared on his face. Chapter 17. Reeling them and going through the game forum. Su Feng changed his status to an anonymous user. Unlike these players who are casually using their usernames in public, Su Feng preferred to remain anonymous. Although he wasn't afraid of revealing his name to others, he didn't wish to be exposed so early on in the game. Only a fool would want to reveal their achievements openly without having any background or sufficient power to deflect against others. How should I make my entrance? Su Feng knitted his brows, pondering over what to type. It needed to have an aura of mystery, but also not too mysterious that would raise suspicions. After thinking for a while, Su Feng gave up and decided to be straightforward, typing on the forum post. Anonymous user, seeing how active you all are, do you think that mysterious player would be willing to come down and be caught by you? Lotus Lime, good point. If I'm the mysterious player, then ID probably go into hiding as well. Harold Fist, we'll just camp for him till he comes down. I doubt he would be willing to stay upstairs for his entire life. Crimson Rose, if you really do that, then you'll just leave yourself a bad impression. Also, do you even have the time to camp in the lobby? Harold Fist, I can easily send one of my subordinates to wait. As Su Feng was calmly reading their responses and reactions, he suddenly received a notification. Opening the notification, It was actually a private message from Gentle Wind. Gentle Wind, I suppose you were the mysterious player, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone anonymous and joined in on the chat. Can we talk more in depth, especially in regards to how you were granted entry to the upper level in the town hall? Astonished, Su Feng didn't expect the player to catch on to his intention to be Gentle Wind. What a surprise. I thought it would be Lotus Lime private messaging me. Just when he was thinking of that, another notification sounded to him, and Su Feng chuckled softly at the message sender. Lotus Lime, hey, anonymous user, or should I call you the mysterious player from the screenshot? Other players are just lurking around to check on the situation, but only you managed to decipher the intention of the supposed mysterious player in the talking. So I'm quite positive you are feeling the pressure right now and want to test the water. Reeling in 2 big fishes. Not a bad harvest. Su Feng smiled, wondering how capable these 2 players could be. Could their wealth be in the millions or hundreds of millions? Just thinking about their wealth-changing owner to him caused Su Feng to be excited. Nevertheless, he didn't become blinded by greed as he calmly pondered who to respond first. Lotus Lime's message was ambiguous, having expressed zero intention of her objective. In fact, she even attempted to test him in return by asking if he was feeling the pressure from the attention he was getting. Maybe this kind of baiting tactic might work on someone, but definitely not him. To him, this kind of pressure was akin to child's play. Meanwhile, Gentle Wind was more straightforward and asked if they could talk more in depth. Most likely, she wanted to gain some information from him, such as the privileges he was currently receiving. What a shame, Lotus Lime. I had expectations for you, but you disappointed me with a private message. Su Feng shook his head, choosing to reply to Gentle Wind. With the private chat window opened, Su Feng began teasing Gentle Wind. Anonymous user. Oh-ho? In-depth talk about my methods in gaining permission to ascend to the upper level, huh? How positive are you that I'm the mysterious player in the screenshot and not just some poser? Gentle Wind. Had you been a poser, then you wouldn't have brought up such a topic. Also, what harm could there be in gambling? If I guessed wrong, then it's whatever, but if I guessed right, then I can gain more in return. Reading her message response, Su Feng was amused. His initial assessment seemed to have been proven wrong. At first, he thought Gentle Wind was a poser, trying to act all high and mighty. But who would have thought the poser turned out to be him? All right, it seems like a misjudgment from me, and I have wronged this Gentle Wind. Rubbing his chin, Su Feng decided to stop stalling her. Anonymous user, are you possibly trying to get the first clear achievement from the dungeon, Scorch Caverns? As soon as Su Feng sent out this message, the other party seemed to have gone silent, having not responded for a few minutes. Despite this, Su Feng was more relaxed than ever, given that it meant Gentle Wind was now in deep thought. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest outside of Riverwood Town, amidst the dappled sunlight filtering through the dense foliage, a woman stood in a small clearing. She exuded an air of elegance and gracefulness, her posture straight and confident. Her chestnut brown hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, framing a face with delicate features and piercing emerald green eyes. Chinro, why are you standing there in a daze? A female voice echoed from behind. Surprised, Gentle Wind turned around and noticed it was her friend. Autumn Breeze, how many times must I remind you to call me by my username? If others learned of my identity because of you saying my name, then what's the point of creating a username? Feng Qingro, otherwise known as Gentle Wind in Divine World, lightly chided her friend. My bad, Gentle Wind. I was just concerned about you earlier and spoke wrongly. Autumn Breeze stuck her tongue out and apologized. Anyway, what's been occupying your mind? She asked, smoothly shifting the conversation to avoid any further reprimand. Gentle Wind breathed out a soft sigh, her expression turning solemn. It seems like we might have to beware of a certain player. Chapter 18. Mastery level Gentle Wind was truly astonished at the beginning when the player she had privately messaged asked such a direct question. For some reason, she could feel the confidence and domineering demeanor from the message sent. The way that the player asked her seemed as if they could obtain the first clear achievement. Could this player really have some information that others don't know? Is it a beta user? But is that even possible? Gentle Wind knitted her brows. Beta users are often used to describe people who had the chance to play the game first before it was released in public. They are people who would have an advantage over others once the game is officially released, even if some of the elements within the game are changed. However, the concerning point about this was that the Divine World developer was a mystery. No one knew who the developers were, including the distributors. But one thing was for certain: the people behind it are definitely powerful and influential. Additionally, rumors of people being beta users of the Divine World before its release were practically non-existent. Or maybe it was confidential information that was well kept hidden from the public. Seriously, Gentle Wind, can you stop being in a daze after saying such things? At least explain it to me first. Autumn Breeze was annoyed that she was being ignored once again, especially when Gentle Wind suddenly revealed they might have to beware of someone. Gentle Wind was about to explain the private message, but decided not to. After all, it was merely her conjecture and not a confirmed fact. There was still a possibility that she was overthinking it and was being trolled. Never mind, just go with the rest of the members to grind levels. We need to reach level 5 as soon as possible, Gentle Wind commanded. Speechless, Autumn Breeze wished to strangle Gentle Wind, who roused up her curiosity, only to conceal the matter in the end. Ugh, whatever. I'm sure you have your own plans anyway, like always. She rolled her eyes and proceeded to return to the team to relay the order. Watching her leave, Gentle Wind flashed a small smile before turning her attention to the private message. Taking a deep breath, she began typing her question, hoping to confirm her conjecture. Gentle Wind, are you perhaps saying you can help us achieve the first clear achievement? Anonymous user, clever, that's indeed my meaning. Though it won't be me assisting you, but someone else that's under me. Gentle Wind, how can I be sure that you aren't talking big? Anonymous user, if I'm not mistaken, you're the one that came to me and not the other way around. You either trust me or you don't. Gentle Wind, sorry, you're right about that. Let me change the question. How are you going to help me get the first clear achievement? Anonymous user, I'm sure you're probably grinding your level to reach level 5 as soon as possible, but that's not necessary. Being at levels 3 and 4 is fine. Just message me at that time, and I'll send someone to assist you. Gentle Wind was astonished by the arrangement and wanted to inquire for further details. Alas, she didn't dare to step over the line and potentially cause the opposing party to change their mind. Thus, she could only wait until she reached level 4 and the rest of her members became level 3 or 4. What an exhausting conversation that is. From start to finish, it was this person leading the conversation, and I can only say yes. Gentle Wind sighed softly. The feeling of being led by others in the nose was definitely not great, but if the person could really do as they said, then it would be worth it. Having recomposed herself, Gentle Wind quickly reunited with Autumn Breeze and the rest as they strive their best to gain experience points at the quickest time possible. As Gentle Wind was preparing to meet the requirements set by Su Feng, he was currently using Herbalist Elias' room to begin his synthesis of potions. The synthesis process isn't difficult because the instructions are noted down on the recipe. What made it difficult was the success rate of the synthesis. After all, the creation of potions all boiled down to luck and the mastery level of the said recipe. Mastery level was a level that described how familiar a person is with a recipe, blueprints, inscriptions, design, etc. There are 5 types of mastery levels, starting with novice, apprentice, adept, expert, and master. As one advanced in their mastery level, the success rate increased accordingly. Novice had a 50% success rate, apprentice had a 60% success rate, adept had a 75% success rate, expert had a 90% success rate, and master had a 100% success rate. Naturally, the current mastery level that Su Feng had for any type of recipe was novice. Hopefully, the amount of herbs that were gifted to me generously could produce more potions. Su Feng prayed inwardly, retrieving a few sets of herbs that are required for the fire resistance potion. The herbs he retrieved are Sunfire Lotus, Emberleaf, Cinderbloom, and Flamegrass. Each one of these herbs costs quite a lot in the marketplace, with Sunfire Lotus being the rarest one. After all, the Sunfire Lotus herb itself had the attribute of providing fire resistance to players, and any type of herb that offered resistance was sought by many. In the beginning, players didn't think much of these types of things, ignoring them completely, but that was their biggest regret later on. As the game progressed, players would soon realize the value of resistance-type herbs and potions, particularly when they encountered hostile environments. Hostile environments are a pain to deal with because they cannot be nullified, only suppressed temporarily. Sigh, I definitely need to earn back the money from Gentle Wind. Otherwise, he'll be a sinful man and be damned for eternity. He murmured, stretching his hands as he began the synthesis and praying for his luck. Chapter 19:19. Fire resistance potions. As Su Feng began the synthesis process, he meticulously arranged the ingredients on the alchemical workstation, courtesy of herbalist Elias. Taking a deep breath and fixing his glasses, he muttered, "It's do or die now." With a determined expression, he first selected the Sunfire Lotus herb, its vibrant petals radiating warmth and vitality. This herb would serve as the main component of the potion, imbuing it with the essential attribute of fire resistance. Next, Su Feng reached for the ember leaf, a delicate herb with fiery hues. Adding the ember leaf to the mixture, he observed as its essence mingled with that of the Sunfire Lotus, enhancing the potion's potency ever so slightly. The more potent a potion was, the stronger the effect would be. With the Sunfire Lotus and ember leaf seamlessly integrated, Su Feng turned his attention to the Cinderbloom. This herb, with its robust aroma and sturdy leaves, was intended for its ability to prolong the effects of potions. By incorporating the Cinderbloom into the concoction, Su Feng ensured that the fire resistance granted by the potion would endure for an extended period, sparing players the need for frequent reapplications. Lastly, Su Feng added the flame grass, its verdant blades contrasting with the fiery hues of the other ingredients. It was primarily included for its mild, cooling properties to counteract heat exposure. With each ingredient carefully measured and added to the mixture, Su Feng observed as the potion began to take shape before his eyes. Now all he could do was to wait for the system to finish the process with a success or failure. Please be a success. Su Feng stared intensely at the potion, his eyes seemingly threatening it to form properly. Otherwise, there will be blood to pay. And whether it was by luck or threat, the potion successfully formed after 5 seconds. System, congratulations to adventurer Lin Feng for being the first player to synthesize a potion, fire resistance potion. Do you wish to announce your achievement in the local region? Amused, Su Feng wondered if the system was enraged by his antics and wanted to throw him into the center of attention. After all, by successfully synthesizing the fire resistance potion, he was able to gain 10 experience points, bypassing the punishment imposed by the system earlier. The debuff only applied to monsters in the wild, but Su Feng never planned on earning experience points like most average players, who said only wild monsters give experience points. I bet you are mad, but too bad, so sad. There's nothing you can do when I've been a lawful civilian. Su Feng teased, choosing the NO option without hesitation. He had tried his best to stay anonymous all along, so why would he choose to expose himself? Wouldn't that have defeated the whole purpose of being anonymous? Unfortunately, the system seemed quite adamant and even decided to add a confirmation prompt, clearly hoping he would change his mind. Of course, it was a joke, and Su Feng understood that the confirmation prompt was merely a safety measure for players who might inadvertently make the wrong decision. Some individuals could be rather clumsy or oblivious, managing to mess things up despite the presence of confirmation prompts. It was almost as if they were drawn to the yes button like bees to honey, unable to resist pressing it as if they were competing in an Olympic sprint. System, are you sure you won't wish to announce your achievement? Adventurer Lin Feng? Glancing at the confirmation prompt, Su Feng pressed the yes button and confirmed that he did not want to publicize his achievement. Could achievement bring him money? No, those achievements would bring him unnecessary attention and trouble from jealous people. With his current state, it was still not the correct time to come out in the open and become the center of attention. If only I was born with a diamond spoon, Then I wouldn't need to worry about publicizing my achievement. Life is really unfair. Su Feng sighed softly. To clear out his mindset, he decided to proceed with synthesizing even more potions. By the time he successfully synthesized 15 potions, Su Feng had risen up to level 2, but he was not happy. After all, in contrast to the 15 successful syntheses, he had failed a whopping 42 times in return. Damn it, this 50% is a lie as always. What 50%? It's more like 35%. He cursed in anger. Just when Su Feng was about to rage further, he suddenly paused himself and wondered what had happened to him. Wait a minute, why am I losing my temper so easily? He questioned himself. Usually, his emotions would be calm and collected, having barely fluctuated much to prevent others from reading him. Yet here he was, flying into a rage just because of a 35% success rate. Although it was a far cry from the 50%, it still doesn't justify the fact that he was losing his cool from a difference of 15%. Fixing his glasses, Su Feng temporarily paused the synthesizing process and relaxed a bit. Glancing at the ceiling for a while, he soon figured out why he was overacting. It was because of the fact that he had an advantage no one had, so now he was feeling pressured to always stay on top. By stumbling on something repeatedly, his conscience was screeching him to hasten the pace, lest others would catch up to him and his advantage would soon be gone. How depressing is it? I actually made such an amateur mistake. Su Feng chuckled bitterly. Without realizing it, he managed to ruin his mentality and nearly made a fatal mistake. After all, if he failed to realize this sooner, then it would have been disastrous in the far future. Having this kind of mindset was no different than having a ticking bomb in his brain ready to explode at any moment. And when that happened, it would be extremely difficult for him to bounce back. He had already experienced a different type of bomb in the past, when he was ruthlessly discarded by the Reaver Guild. There was no way he would allow himself to be placed in such a situation again. It's merely some minor setback. It's not a big deal. What kind of storm have I not faced? He snorted, having completely restructured his mindset. Chapter 20. Auction market. After restructuring his mindset and to not be pressured by something intangible, Su Feng's emotions soon became tranquil. Despite continuous failure in synthesizing, there was barely any reaction or changes in his expression. The entire time, Su Feng was patient and continued with his process until all the herbs were used up. In total, Su Feng successfully synthesized 48 potions and 94 inferior potions. As for how many failed, he didn't even bother counting since he simply moved on right away. The 48 potions are the precious ones with Cinder Bloom added, meaning the duration of the potion's effect lasts longer. Meanwhile, the inferior potions are the ones that Su Feng cheaped out on, having neglected the Cinder Bloom. Thus, the potion's effect's duration was short, but it was the perfect potion in Su Feng's mind. After all, the shorter the duration of the potion's effect, the more the players must purchase to continuously consume for their adventure, dungeon, or whatever they're trying to do that requires it. Oh, I could just smell the money raining down from the sky already. Su Feng flashed a sinister smile. As evil as his conduct may be, it was the reality of the world. Even in the real world, people love to cut corners to lower production costs while increasing their prices. It was a common practice, so he shouldn't be condemned for doing this. In fact, he should be commended for being the first to slap the players with a reality check that whether it was real life or in-game, they would be extorted. I am really a saint. I seriously need to stop being so generous. Su Feng gushed, having zero shame whatsoever. Anyway, I should check out the auction market and leave this room already. I can't believe how much time I wasted in synthesizing. Hopefully, I can get the auto-function skill soon. Sometime later, Su Feng retrieved all the newly synthesized potions from his inventory. He cleaned up some of the mess and proceeded to take the secret passage. The secret passage was designed to allow the people upstairs to exit the area without being seen or bothered by the people in the lobby. After all, the town hall could be said to be the most important area for influential and powerful people. Naturally, this secret passage is not known information, and only a few people are allowed to learn of this. The same applied to Su Feng, but that didn't mean he didn't have the knowledge already. Hence, without alerting receptionist Sandy and the group of players that were camping by the lobby, Su Feng had already left the town hall. To those still waiting in the lobby, they continued to believe the mysterious player to still be upstairs or had logged out of the game temporarily. I might as well let them immerse in the illusion that I'm still upstairs. Gleefully looking at the bunch of lost lambs in the lobby, Su Feng calmly walked around the street, finding a bench to sit on. The process of unlocking the auction market was fairly easy. One needed to reach level 2 and pay a fixed amount of coins corresponding to one level to unlock. This meant that the higher one's level was, the more they needed to pay to unlock the function. Therefore, it was best to unlock it as soon as one reached the level 2 requirement. As for why he felt the need to come outside, Su Feng didn't like the feeling of being trapped in a room. Though the truth was that being in a room would constantly remind him of the number of failures and the loss of precious herbs. Although he wouldn't rage about it anymore, it still pained him nonetheless. The feeling was akin to having seen your money being dumped into an ocean, forever gone. Opening the auction market tab that was still grayed out in the prompt, Su Feng quickly searched for the option to pay. System. Are you sure about paying 10 copper coins to unlock the auction market? 10 copper coins might not seem a lot to the current him, but it was a massive amount to most players. However, that was the main aspect of the auction market in requiring such a fee. The auction market was not open for the mediocre players, and only those who could earn big bucks in a short span of time would be qualified to be here. After paying the 10 copper coins without a blink of an eye, Su Feng was soon greeted by the unlocked interface of the auction market. There might not be many items being auctioned in the current listing, but he was indeed surprised to see there were at least thousands of players online in the auction market. Online players, 2,358 current listings. Iron Sword, Level 2, Seller. Dragon Knight 69 starting bid. 10 copper coins buyout price. 30 copper coins time left. 12 hours enchanted robes. Level 3 Seller. Mystical Mage starting bid. 8 copper coins buyout price. 25 copper coins time left. 8 hours hunting bow. Level 2 Seller. Shadow Archer starting bid. 15 copper coins buyout price. 2 silver coins time left. 10 hours iron plate armor. Level 3 Seller. Anonymous user starting bid. 20 copper coins. Buyout price. 3 silver coins time left. 6 hours. Most of the items being auctioned are level 2 gears, with some being level 3. These people sure know how to grind. Su Feng was amused, especially by some of the usernames and a player who wished to remain anonymous. To reach such a level without any advanced knowledge could be considered an achievement in itself. It meant that these players were already ahead of the majority and could call themselves rankers. Of course, when compared to him, they were no different than a bunch of clowns clamoring around. Gears are indeed a wonderful increase of strength, but it's very limited and can be used by one person only. How could they compare to the universal potions that everyone could benefit from? He snickered, ready to make a killing with his inferior potion stock.